Sometimes I'm actually happy if I get to review a device after the hype train is left, just because it gives me an opportunity to put a different spin on it. And I'm not meaning in terms of a different kind of review, just of a different opinion, because when I'm going to review the Huawei Mate 9 today, I maybe won't sound overly impressed, because for the one reason that it is a $700 or Euro phone still. It will get cheaper after all, and for a $700 device I just expect everything to be the best. And I'm not saying that this is not a great phone, because it is a fantastic phone. It is one of the very few best phones out there on the market. But I don't know, I expected something a little bit more impressive, because we've seen so many phones this year, for about 400 already, that offer a close experience to that, and that's why I sound a little bit weird. And I will put a little bit of a different spin in terms of nagging on a few things that maybe isn't necessary, and I definitely get it, it's very subjective, but since this review will be done way past, everyone has done its review already, everyone has watched this review, I can make this a video more towards my core viewership, and they don't have a problem if I maybe bash something, because after all, that's what I think, that's what I feel, and that's what I want to express. So let's start off with design and build quality. Absolutely nothing bad to say here. It is class leading in my opinion, because it feels amazingly beautiful. I mean, it feels premium, because super solid. It looks beautiful with the nice curve here towards the back. It actually makes a little bit of a difference, and it feels quite overall round, even though we have beveled edges and they look nice. I'm not quite sure how well they will hold up, but it definitely is built like a tank. Overall, so nice. And one thing that I absolutely love are those clicky, really nice, tactile, and amazingly premium feeling buttons. So here is everything still great, and same goes for the fingerprint reader, because as you can see here, this one is so fast, especially the screen also turns on very fast, and it is super reliable. So this is definitely one of the best ones. Here we have the laser LED focus with the LEDs, laser autofocus I meant, but yeah, you get it. Dual camera, which I will go later, IR blaster, headphone jack, of course, SD card and SIM card tray on the bottom. We have the speaker with the fake speaker and the micro USB, but this is not the only speaker, because it works in tandem with the earpiece as well, like we have seen on the HTC 10. Buttons I've already covered. We have a notification LED. As we can see, we have a little black border, but it's super thin. And just look at the overall bezel, still super compact, and which makes it quite actually handleable for a device of this size. But after all, it is though quite big, and there's nothing else that I can say. I just have to say, build quality and design, everything here is just absolutely top-notch, class leading, and here I can't really complain, not at all. Now, let's take a display. Let's take a look at the display. 1080p, yes, only 1080p, but I will get to that in just a second. IPS and 5.9 inches. And there have been a few people that I've heard nagging about the resolution. It's just 1080p. But let me tell you one thing. I would actually like to slap those people, because unless you use VR, this display is super sharp, and it's especially its quality that kind of blows me away, because everything looks just so sharp. The clarity of the display is great. Of course, we have, as you can see here, the color temperature mode, and I actually set it to cold. It looked a little bit too warm for my eyes, but it was just my personal, my personal taste, so don't really mind that too much. So let's quickly get back to that. And I still say sharpness is absolutely fine. The white point is great once you set it to your preference. Black level is really good. Normal amount of IPS glow, and those colors. Yes, maybe not for someone who wants something super accurate, but a really nice sweet spot between the people that want still impressive display, but also a quite natural after all. So I like it. For a few people, it could be oversaturated, but I absolutely love it. Of course, I would wish for, at this point, an option to maybe change the saturation, but that's not the case. Viewing angles, super stable, no problem. Super bright display. I only used it at 20% in normal use. That is highly impressive. So amazing, brilliant, high quality, super top-notch display, and whoever tells you something else, in my opinion, is just a spec idiot. Sorry. Okay, speaker. Okay, this is just something that I want to quickly address, because if you turn on the rotation, it actually switches the mode to make a better appearance for the sound if you use it in portrait or in landscape. That is quite a handy feature. I don't think it would have made such a big difference if that wouldn't have been the case. But overall, as you have seen, the down-firing speaker is more towards the mids and bass, where the upper one is pretty much only for highs. And I still hear a little bit of a differentiation because you hear the separation of being a little bit more on the bassy side here and a little bit more on the high side here. But not a problem. Overall, absolutely nice. Definitely better than on the HTC 10. It's way louder, really absolutely more than loud enough. And the overall sound is quite warm, but still has a lot of clarity and high quality sound to it. So definitely a very good, almost maybe actually even great speaker. If it would have been dual front firing, actually a proper one, it would have been great. Headphone jack, actually nice to see that they went a little bit of a step further, and it is above average. It's still far off from an HTC 10, but it is actually good enough that I would say it's fine. Still want more, but at least it's a step in the right direction. Now, performance. Let's check and kill all the apps. Is that even possible? Yes, let's take it off. And as you can see here, we have the 4GB version. I don't even think there is another one. Let's launch a few apps and see how those work out. Let this load. This, of course, is now due more to my Wi-Fi. Okay, let's try a few more. As you can see, absolutely fast, super responsive, super snappy. I absolutely love that. I reduced the animations, by the way, to 0.5, but this is the case on all the devices. Okay, let's check the scrolling here. It looks great, super smooth, not as great smooth in terms of like an AMOLED display, but absolutely pleasing. Still not the biggest fan of this one thing, and I will complain about it, the tweaked scrolling. Still think it's out of place. I wish that to be gone. Won't happen anytime soon, I guess, but I still want to point it out. I just don't want it. And I think it still introduced some more lags because, after all, even this is a super powerhouse of a phone. As you can see, it performs so great. It still has quite often some slowdowns. And yes, this is me picking on a really, really high level because overall the performance is great. But I've just seen this year phones that run smoother and have a nicer scrolling and don't really have those odd, still a little bit upsetting slowdowns. It's nothing that will hurt your overall experience. Nothing at all. But I just have to point it out because, after all, I said it, this is a $700 device and that should perform the very best, which it does. But not very, very, very best. I think you get it. Of course, 4GB of RAM, multitasking worked great. Not a fan, though, of this arrangement because, as you can see, the last app pretty much takes all of the space up, as you can see here. This is way too much. It should be more like this right now, but it isn't. So that's a minor complaint, but still not a big fan of that. When it comes to the gaming performance, this is really great because we are having a very powerful GPU and only 1080p to push. And that results in amazing gaming performance because very high overall refresh rates. Still, unfortunately, a few slowdowns here and there, quite noticeably after all, but the overall gaming performance at all times is absolutely great. Yes, the device got a little bit warmer than I wanted to. Maybe at some point it would even throttle, but not noticeably, at least not enough in my opinion. My Bluetooth controller worked fine. So in the end, all I'm going to say is that the gaming performance is amongst the very best ones, especially the overall experience is great, absolutely top-notch, nothing else to say here. When it comes to battery life, a full charge takes about 1 hour and 40, which is really good because, after all, the battery is really great. In terms of YouTube, the drain was actually, I would say, still very good. Not great, but very good. And then let's check my estimates. 6 hours on data only on one day, 7 hours about on mixed use, and 8 on Wi-Fi only, about 1 hour less over the course of 2 days. Standby drain was one thing that I was a little bit disappointed at first because I had like more than 0.5%, almost 1% sometimes over an hour overnight. But I think it has something to do with Instagram because once I deleted that and set the device, at least at night, to airplane mode, I got like maybe 1% every 5 hours. I still think there is something a little bit crooked because it shouldn't have been the case. For some reason, Instagram kept on turning on and on, even though I made it actually turn off because there is the option that you can turn off the apps once the screen is off to save battery life. For some reason, Instagram wouldn't want to do that. But after all, battery life, to keep it short, is great plus. Okay, let's take a look at the software, and this is already running Nougat. and EMUI 5. As you can see, we still have these kind of quick app shortcuts at the bottom. Definitely quite nice and handy, but I probably will never use them. We also have the quick settings, which I definitely think are the biggest advantage over EMUI 4.1, because now you can swipe them twice, have more of them. Of course, you can adjust them or rearrange them, if this would work. As you can see, now it did a little bit of a hiccup, but I liked it. What I don't like so much is that the theming engine so far doesn't seem to make any impact on the theming of that, so that's a minor thing. What is nice to see, even though I want to use it, I won't use it either. Now we have an app tray in the launcher, an app drawer, but you still have the option to go without one if you want to. Personally, yeah, nothing that really excites me, because app drawers are there with third-party launchers for ages already, so not really too much to say here. We have App Twin. This means you can run a secondary app of one, or sort of a second instant, if you want to maybe use a second account and so on. Of course, we can still rearrange the buttons. What else is there to maybe call out? Let's check. I don't really see too much of a difference. It actually still feels like 4.1 along with the additions. Of course, we now have dual window. As you can see here, you can rearrange it. That works pretty much exactly as it does on Android Nougat. And we have mini screen view where we can, for example, now switch the display to one side and make it smaller, as you can see here. Definitely handy for a big device like this. Other than that, we have the floating dock. As you can see here, this kind of pops up a little window where you see a little bit more. But as you can see, you don't really see anything you haven't maybe seen already on previous devices. Of course, now if you are in the settings, you can always see all the settings here. And we still have for display the color temperature control, eye comfort mode is now there. Font size is nice, but also the view mode, because you can make it large. But this is also a thing of Nougat. But we've seen this already on EMUI before, actually. Home screen style, as I said, you can change. But in the end, it feels a lot more polished, a lot more refined at the outside, because it just looks nicer. The one thing that I didn't like so much, but I've talked about, that the recent apps design looks weird. I would have preferred to maybe having been optional, because a lot of people I know like the EMUI style, a lot of like stock Android, but this is not stock Android, because on stock Android the individual apps weren't that big, so it was a little bit proper. This feels a little bit weird to me. But other than that, the software themes are there, but they don't really change much besides maybe the icons and so on. I guess maybe over time the designs will get a little bit more involvement and maybe be able to change something like the system design and also the quick settings, but so far it's not the case. But other than that, it's okay. But I still have to say, it feels a lot like EMUI, especially with the RAM management and the apps management, where it wants to kill all the apps all the time. They just rearranged a few settings here and there, but it still feels pretty much that. I know a lot of people actually prefer 4.1 over 5, but I would say the biggest difference actually is the quick settings. They just are on a different page on 4.1, and the recent apps task. But other than that, it actually feels a lot like it just themed a little bit more towards Nougat, a little bit more pleasing to my eyes actually. But yeah, okay, good enough for that. Now, let me quickly get that off the way. Let's check the camera. Selfies, I have to say, look really sharp, really great. I think that the white balance seemed a little bit off for me, because my face looks a little bit too pale. I know I'm pale, but not that much. But other than that, as you can see here, not always super sharp, but the overall details absolutely fine. It is absolutely, I would say, very good. Not maybe quite flagship level. In low light, as you can see, it gets a little bit blurrier, but still very good, don't get me wrong. But I actually have expected a little bit more from the camera. Of course, if you want some more information on the camera, just watch something like a real camera review from Juan Bagnell, because I pretty much like to talk more about the experience and overall, and so less about the actual quality, because I'm, after all, just an average camera Joe. And what I see here, low light capabilities and so on, still absolutely pleasing. And the same goes actually for outside pictures. But yeah, I'm not overly impressed, because I expected that to happen after all what we've seen from the P9 and similar. But as you can see here, definitely great amount of details. The autofocus is still not quite on a flagship level, because it has this one pump and therefore is not the fastest one. But of course, picture quality is great and it is pleasing. But for some reason, I have to say, the white balance and colors sometimes felt a little bit off, which you will see in a second. Yeah, just a second. Let me find the photo here. But as you can see, yeah, it's absolutely nice. But here, this and this is pretty much the same picture and a completely different white balance. So this is where I'm not quite so surprised about. If you check the video, this is 4K now. Looks a little bit jittery, especially for some reason on faster movement. It looks a little bit odd. Maybe it could be due to the flickering, I don't know. But after all, a way higher sharpness than actually compared to the 1080p footage that I will show you in just a second, because that one looks noticeably more blurry. And it's not the usual difference between 4K and 1080p, but what I like a lot, the great autofocus, because as you can see here, it actually even autofocuses in movement, which is great, and it's super reliable, really great. Of course, actually the footage is quite stable here for my shaky walking, and I definitely like the video, but I've seen better ones already. Something like the Pixel I still think makes nicer videos. Of course, there is some glare because the sun was a little bit unfortunate, but overall, great video camera, absolutely no problems here at all. Let's check the 1080p footage, and no, this is actually still. This should no, I think this actually is 1080p because it looks noticeably less sharp. But yeah, let's just leave that like it is. Let's get back and give me just a second. Okay, I think I've covered it all. So let's get to the pros and cons. In case I forgot something, I will cover that, and let's make it actually quick because I've already spent way too much of your time. Now, class-leading build quality, I've already said that. Relatively thin and compact, still actually surprising. Awesome buttons, I like that. Great fingerprint reader, I love that. Very brilliant display quality, especially the quality is great, and the calibration, I like it a lot. It is pretty much my sweet spot. The low resolution, nah, absolutely not a problem at all. Very good speaker, above average 3.5 head model jack, we've seen that. Flagship performance, great plus battery life, best EMUI yet, great camera overall. Now, let's get into the not that great things. Very big after all, but I guess that's why it's in brackets. If you want a big phone, this is what you want. And for its display size, it is compact. Only 1080p, I've said that. I would like to slap all those people who say it is not a flagship level display just because it's not Quad HD. Nah. I don't accept that. Performance, not flawless. As I said, I still am not the biggest fan of those still overall noticeable slowdowns here and there. Actually, more often than I would have wished for, and I don't like the tweaked scrolling. EMUI still has its quirks because it's still, after all, a little bit annoying in terms of what apps it wants to kill. You can disable that option that it shows you. Sometimes it's actually quite handy because due to those prompts, I noticed that Instagram was draining way too much battery. But it can get a little bit annoying, and there are a few other things. And then it's, after all, still expensive. For about $700 still. If you want the very best one, it's actually not that, because it's not the very best one. Yes, design, yeah. Display, yeah. Sound, very close. Performance, actually not the very best one. Battery life, there are also ones with better ones, but for a flagship, it's absolutely on the top there. Software, nah, not still. Camera, very good, and maybe close towards the top 5, but I kinda enjoyed the experience of a camera more on a Samsung Galaxy S7, on a Pixel way more, and on a maybe LG 5 and so on. Yes, we have things like wide aperture mode and so on, and it is a very capable manual camera. And I guess if you have seen the real camera review, which I actually haven't seen, you will know what it is capable of. But for a normal user like me, I liked it a lot, and I would say it's a great camera. But the experience I've seen already better. So this is what I meant by putting a different spin on it, because everyone said it's the best phablet, it's the best everything. Yes, it pretty much is an overall the best. But it is also super expensive, and you can get something very close to that for still a lot less money. Okay, maybe not in that size range, because we still don't have too many 5.9 or 6 inches with those qualities. But if you are okay with 5.5 inches, I still think something like a ZTE X7, or I'm pretty sure also a OnePlus 3T, and phones at around this level offer more value, are just a better purchase. If you want... this is very much something like that I said already on the Pixel XL review. If you want kind of the very best experience, are willing to pay a little bit more for that, or actually a lot more, yeah. But is it necessary? If you are an elitist, sure. But if you are someone who's actually looking for its money, getting a good value, maybe not. I don't know, maybe I was a little bit overly critical. I don't think so. But it is what it is, and the video is way too long. But like I said, yeah, expect more of these reviews this year, because because of that. Okay, otherwise, you know the drill. I won't even say it anymore. But otherwise, a nice day. Wish you. Bye. That sounded off.